don't want people to think that InsurTech and innovation and transformation are like these massive 3 years, 5 years projects. You can actually change a lot in less time than that.
You're listening to Rethinking Insurance, a podcast series from Willis Towers Watson, where we discuss the issues facing P&C, life, and composite insurers around the globe, as well as exploring the latest tools, techniques, and innovations that will help you to rethink insurance.
Hello, and welcome to Rethinking Insurance. I'm your host, Carrie Kelley. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by my guest, Magdalena Ramada, who is a Senior Director in our Madrid office and the Willis Towers Watson InsurTech Innovation Leader for EMEA. Welcome, Magda.
Hi, Carrie. How are you doing? Thanks for having me.
We're happy to have you. In today's episode, we're going to be discussing InsurTech for life insurance and current industry trends in the space. But first, let's find out a little bit more about our guest. So, Magda, our question to introduce people is to ask about, if you Google yourself, what does that search come back with, and what would you really like to see when you Googled yourself?
So I've done a couple of these, and I'm going to try to give you a different answer.
Okay.
Usually I want people not to find anything about me. I'm very private, so I actually Google myself very often to make sure nothing's out there for my personal life. But I don't know, I wish one day you Google me and you just find I got the Nobel Prize for, I don't know, fighting poverty or something big. I've always dreamed about that.
Very ambitious. Okay. One day, right? So, as I said, we're going to talk about InsurTech, specifically focusing on the life space. So to start us off, what are some of the trends you're seeing in the InsurTech space that you feel life insurers should be aware of?
There's multiple trends right now that are relevant for life insurers, and they have been for a couple of years, right? It's just that life insurers took longer to acknowledge them and to use them. Although we have seen investment from the life insurance and health space, and it has always been there. It's not new. It's growing. Last year was a year where we saw actually a lot of activity, some very big deals. And essentially, I always separate the trends into like two buckets. The one of the low-hanging fruit and the things that are really about increasing efficiency, improving our current business models, doing things better, assessing risk more accurately. And all of those are really about applying advanced analytics and machine learning and automation in the right way, on the right places. Life insurers got later to the party on that one, but actually they are now thinking about using a lot of this to decrease the time to market and to become more efficient. On the other hand, you have things that are really about changing your business model, the way we look at risk, the way we mitigate risk, the way we understand it. And that's where you get everything around data sources, new data sources, continuous interaction with your customer. You know, life insurance has always been characterized by almost no post-sale interaction, right? Unless it's about renewals and changing the price of your policy. There's not a lot of interaction, or there hasn't been traditionally a lot of interaction post-sale. And that has changed. Life insurers are really trying to have a more fluid relationship because of two reasons. One, because it improves the stickiness of the product. They want to become a partner to the customers. It's more customer-centric. And on the other hand, because it generates more data. The more touch points you have with a customer, the more data you generate. It becomes more transactional, the more you understand about their needs, about their behavior, about the value they add to your company, about the value you add to them. So essentially, those are like the two areas where we're seeing most activity. One is really about efficiency and the low-hanging fruit of becoming better, cheaper, and faster, what we do and the way we do it. And the second bucket is really about changing part of our business models.
Okay. So building on that increased interaction, there have been a number of startups recently focusing on gamification in the life space and behavioral economics. So how are they integrating these practices into life insurance? Can you speak a little bit more to that?
I love the topic of behavioral science in the context of life insurance and insurance in general. And I think, one of the main struggles we have always had with longevity risk and things related to, things that can happen, but actually they will happen because we all will die at some point, right? But it always seems far away. And the discounting of expectations is something people have talked for a while in terms of, how people do not see the value of investing in insurance or in something now that they will actually be using in 20 years or in 30 years. And it's interesting because behavioral science has realized that that's actually not what's driving people to be underinsured in the context of life insurance. And actually what is driving people to be underinsured is the constant nudges and environmental cues that you get on a day-to-day basis that make other things more urgent and relevant and that change your preferences. So it's not about you don't thinking that your future lacks relevance. It's just that other things that are immediate and bombarding you on a constant basis seem more important to you. And therefore, behavioral science has been using that to change the relationship and the feeling that you really need life insurance. And that interaction is really interesting. It is about making an invisible product more visible. So I don't know if you know Dan Ariely, but Dan Ariely is the chief behavioral officer of Lemonade, or used to be. And he has a lot of videos out there about how you can use behavioral economics and behavioral science in the context of insurance to turn around the way you interact with customers and to just turn vicious cycles into virtuous ones. And one of the things he talks about is really that visibility, the fact that making a payment today means for certain families and in the underserved segment, that's actually a fact, right? If I pay €9 or $9 a day today, it may mean that there is less food on the table that night, right? And the food on the table is visible and life insurance isn't. So you make it visible, you transform it into something that you can pass on. You add some ceremonial stuff to it. And I think that's really powerful. And on the gamification side, it is really about changing those cues around you and when they are negatively affecting your choices. So we have a tendency, human beings have, to just always go for the option that has less friction. And sometimes that option is really not the best one in the long term. So changing that and making sure that you generate either two options that have the same amount of friction, or that you put friction on the options that will have the worst outcome, just changes people's behaviors. I really like a startup that used this approach combined with some life coach approach and a very cool game, very visual, where you play 10 minutes a day, and they did this with students, and you kill your inner monsters. And the AI that is fueling this game is learning from your messages. It's not really reading your messages, but understanding your style, and talks to you in the same way you would talk to you. So, you have to go against your own laziness. You have to go against your own fears. And they're all like these monsters in the game, and you play against them, and you do like contracts with yourself and things you want to achieve. Like, I want to get an A in the next exam. And they did that for students, and they did like a double-blind type of study and showed that it actually was very effective at changing people's behavior in a sustainable way. So I think there's so much we could do, and it's really more about changing people's perception around what's important than fundamentally changing anything about the product. It's more about this whole customer journey around the product, right?
That's really interesting. So branching out a little bit, the InsurTech space has continued to lag the P&C counterparts on the life side. What do you think is driving the slower adoption for, these new innovations on the life side versus the P&C side?
It's a very different type of business. So the P&C side just has, the frequency of data and of claims and of interaction has always been higher. So the need for data-intensive models was always there, and therefore that has been a catalyst to incorporate new data sources and even more higher performing models into the way you do the underwriting and the way you do the pricing. It has always been a very dynamic market compared to the life insurance one. Does that mean that life insurance doesn't need that? No, that's not true. Actually, we are doing some advanced analytics on the life insurance side, and you can use machine learning models, and they do perform better than other things. It's just that, to me, there's always two two dimensions. Well, not to me, we have a framework for this, but it's like you have two dimensions around product. One is really the sophistication in terms of its digitization, the way it interacts with the customer, the design of that product. And then there is like the pricing, underwriting, claims, and product design sophistication, the technical one, right? And that sophistication is given by the market. So depending on the market you're in, you may have a very cool product that doesn't have to have a very technical approach to it, because the market is not technical. The price is not technical. There's no competition around the price. It's a very soft market. And in other cases, you may have a product that actually is not digital at all. It doesn't have it's not customer centric. It doesn't have all the great attributes we're seeing in digital products today, but it's highly technical because you're in a very hard market with a lot of technicity behind the price. And I think life insurance hasn't seen yet that level of competition. So why do you have very technical pricing and underwriting? Well, because obviously you need that to survive. The life insurance business is a business that really needs that. But those models need to be extremely accurate, but they don't need to be dynamic, for instance. They don't need to change every month in the context of the market we are today. So that means that life insurers didn't need to invest a lot into that type of modeling sophistication and dynamic modeling. And therefore, there seemed to be less of a need. Today, we actually are helping clients there. I'm currently working on a project where we're looking at a portfolio of a life insurer and changing all the 5 products into what can be done better in the context of the current environment for investing and low interest rates, in the context of your relationship with your customer, in your context of wanting to go digital. So, and that requires different tools. And some of those tools are in the InsurTech space. Some of those tools we have around, better models, models that allow you to have an underwriting process around 2 questions instead of a questionnaire of 15 questions, and then, medical checkups and blood drawings. So I think it's changing very quickly. And in the US, where we have seen most of the deals on the life and health space, it has been more about navigating a very complicated environment, because health insurance in the US is very complicated. But a lot of the innovation has been around personal lines in the US, and that has changed. Now we're seeing more innovation coming from other parts of the world. But in the context of the US, personal lines for life and health, well, a lot of that is actually covered under group. The personal line side of that is actually not that large. So I think that's why it took time. It took time to understand how to use what was out there and how to leverage it. And I guess the market didn't need it as much as the P&C market.
Build on that. You touched a little bit on this, but how are you seeing traditional insurance companies kind of integrate these new innovations? So you talked a little bit about, working with a company to help rehaul their underwriting. Yeah. But throughout the space, do you see companies partnering with, say, InsurTech startups to find and use these new technologies? Are they building these systems in-house? Are they doing combinations of those?
There's everything. There's multiple ways in which incumbents are actually partnering with the ecosystem. Part of my role is really to understand how we partner with the ecosystem, right? Because we develop solutions for insurers, and the whole industry is actually transitioning to a world where it's more about microservices and reusable components across different areas of risk or different areas of your value chain or different functions. And therefore, you need a very good and lean and transparent partnership ecosystem framework. And I feel that's where many of the life and health insurers are failing, right? It's really not about finding the coolest thing to do. If you talk to all of these companies, they don't lack ideas. They have plenty of ideas. But then finding the right partner for each idea, making the right questions, understanding how sustainable it is to partner with that startup or with another startup or with a tech giant that is also developing some of these solutions, or with us, right? Who are a provider for technology for most of the market. So essentially, I think navigating the ecosystem and being able to compare all these microservices or these data sources is where the difficulty is. And not every insurer has a function that is staffed and that has the capability to deal with this, because the level of acceleration and options is just incredible. I don't know, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when I started in the InsurTech space, I could just read about stuff once a week, right? And now, even if I don't know, I block 3 hours a day to read, is not enough, and I don't block them anymore because. So it's just like I think navigating that complexity and acceleration is not easy, and it is a process. So, 6 years ago, everything was fascinating. I would love everything and say, oh, this is amazing. And we could do the A, B, and C with this. And then you start asking the right question. Not everyone's secret sauce is actually a secret sauce. A lot of people are using open source. And then you become like I don't know if cynic is the right word, but it's just like, okay, another guy doing this with that, right? So the life and health insurance space still has to go through that transition, like the P&C space did, and it takes some time. And then you have the natural, inertia in all of this. It's difficult to make some changes. Companies are very emotionally attached to their legacy systems and investments they did that are now obsolete. So all of that is not easy to change. And in the case of life and health, it's also about your channels. In most countries, the way you sell life insurance is very agent and broker based. So it's not about you getting on board with technology and digitalization. You have to get your channels on board too. And there's a lot of resistance depending on what those channels are, how they are staffed, how big, how small, the demographics of those channels. So it's a whole thing. The project we're doing right now started being about changing life insurance products and innovating these 5 products. And it ended up about being, we also have to change the investment function. We got our talent and rewards people on board, the people on change management, the people on communication, because there's so many things you have to change just to bring a life insurer portfolio to the 21st century. So it's more complex than it seems. It's just not about investing in a startup and making a cool partnership. You can make the headline. It looks nice, but productizing it, that's the difficult part.
All right. So if there was one key takeaway you would want people to have from this discussion, what would that be?
Okay, so, if I'm talking to regular people like me, customers of life insurance, I think my key message would be your data has a lot of value. Be very wary about what you do with your data, how you own your data. Be liable for your own data. And just don't give it away for free because there's a lot of very cool stuff that people can do with your data and very uncool stuff as well. And the way people perceive you and your risk is actually linked to your data. So I'm a very big advocate of data self-sovereignty and people being in charge of their own data. So life insurers, health insurers, and P&C insurers, almost every other corporate out there is leveraging people's data. And I think people need to think about that, about the data they produce and how it's being used and how they want to be in control of that. If the people that are listening are actually people within life and health insurers and that are taking decisions about innovation, I think my message is really transformation is not as hard as it seems. You can do it in 6 to 8 week sprints. You just need the right partner to transform. Make sure that you're transforming everything that needs to be transformed in the right moment and iterate around it. And when you look at a product from the perspective of the customer and not of a policy, and and you really look at that customer journey, there's many changes that you can do that are quick wins. So I don't want people to think that InsurTech and innovation and transformation are like these massive 3 years, 5 years projects. You can actually change a lot in less time than that. And that's what we're trying to do with them, really transform the industry together and make sure they understand that there is so many tools out there that could be leveraged overnight. And that's the beauty of it. And I think that's what's great about what happened, that today we really have a toolbox that is amazing.
All right. Well, Magda, thank you for joining us today to talk about InsurTech for life insurance.
It has been my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And thank you, everyone, for listening to Rethinking Insurance. Have a good day.
Thank you for joining us for this Willis Towers Watson podcast. For more information, visit the Insights section of willistowerswatson.com.